Hi, everyone. I just wanted to come on here today and talk to you about the video or part of the video that I uploaded yesterday, transmission from the 9, entitled Cosmic Rebirth, Blue Full Supermoon, August 30th and 31st, 2023. So I'm recording this today on the 31st of August. And it's just a section in the middle of the transmission that I wanted to look at. I had already been picking up on this frequency, and then the 9 brought this forward. So I would just like to present what my interpretation is of what this transmission is referring to. I will speak as much as I can about what the 9 are saying, but at the same time, I may also be mentioning parts of the novel that I've been writing with your assistance since 2020, entitled The Bifurcated Village. So I'll try and speak as much as I can about what the 9 are saying in this transmission, but if I need to discuss the novel as well, I will do so. I may well have to do that, actually. Okay, so the first little bit I want to look at, the 9 said, just check this is recording and hasn't gone off. Yes, it is. That's great. The 9 said, a potential energetic, talking about the energetic of now, a potential energetic looping back to the initiations that presented once before, but 3 years past in linear presentation from your perspective. Yet in truth, this is the figure of 8 toroidal energetic, allowing you to move through your own sine wave experience and transcend the repeating loop, instead moving into your own creation. Now, if you are familiar with the 9's information and you are working with a 5th dimensional, multidimensional, interdimensional energy, working with that crystalline activation, you will know exactly what this means. But I'm going to give you my interpretation. As I always say, my interpretation of the 9's information is simply my interpretation. Your interpretation of what they are saying may be slightly different to mine. So if that is the case, I would take on board my interpretation here, but your interpretation is always the one that you should focus on. Sometimes people have interpretations that I might see as a complete misinterpretation and a total distortion of what the 9 are saying, but that's in my reality. In your reality, you are the driver of your own vehicle, if you will. So everything I say is simply a guideline, and it's my perspective. Okay, so the 9 said a potential energetic. So there is this energetic field, this pattern, but it's potential at the moment. It's sitting in potential because it hasn't actually manifested as yet in the 3rd dimensional reality. So it's a potential energetic pattern coming into form. That's how I see it. A series of potential presentations coming into the pattern that will eventually then set, that will then manifest. And as I've said before, the pattern that we see in the antimatter realm or the etheric realm prior to manifestation can manifest in a myriad of ways that fit that antimatter pattern. So we have this potential energetic coming into geometric form that creates a cohesive structure that then will move into manifestation. It hasn't set fully yet. Now, I feel the reason for that is because there are fluctuations in the consciousness of humanity, as in awake and aware humanity, asleep humanity, humanity waking up, and then there are the characters in the novel that we call the overlords, these fictional characters, their consciousness as well, all moving in different synchronization. And there is a vying for timelines, if you will. There is a vying for that setting of geometry. At the moment, and it's been this way for quite some time, But that's a new thing, because previous to that, it was different. Previous to that, the characters in the novel we call overlords were setting that. They knew how to set that. But since around 2012, a few years either side, the 2012 time period, that's shifted and become more and more and more the awakened, aware Aurora network, Christ Sophia consciousness, individuals, celestially seeded ones, starseeds. They've been creating this set with their consciousness, their cohesive consciousness, more and more and more, especially since 2020, and especially since this year, 2023, since the solstice in June that we've just gone through, and again, the Lion's Gate. So that's fixed now when it comes to who is creating that consciousness. So the overlords in the novel have to create an overlay that is a superimposing structure that disguises the actual set geometric pattern, but it doesn't replace it. So that's the potential energetic. Now, what that energetic is potentially coming into form for, and I say potentially because this isn't a definite, it isn't set in pattern yet, but it's coming into that pattern. And I'll know more as we go forward. But this is the pattern for the blue moon, the cosmic rebirth. That's why the 9 are calling this a cosmic rebirth. Yesterday and today, the 30th and the 31st of August. We've got the equinox coming. This will likely solidify that pattern. And there may be more than one pattern that comes into presentation for manifestation. So we will know more as we go towards the equinox. But this blue moon is shining a real light on this consciousness and these different consciousnesses that are all putting their frequency into that pattern. So this is what the pattern is setting into, a potential looping back to the initiations that presented once before. So we've had a pattern presenting opportunity for initiation. Now, how we may see that here in the third dimensional reality is a test, a challenge. It could be a huge, huge challenge, a massive test. We might not perceive it as a test. Yet again, we might perceive it as a test. And that's how many of us do see this. The 9 say test or challenge in truth is opportunity for initiation. Initiation into the crystalline self, the true God-realized self. That's what the initiation is into as an individual and as a collective. And that leads to an initiation into a new world, a new reality, a new dimension, a new earth. That's what that initiation is. So we've had these initiations, and this new pattern that is forming into a set geometry is one that shows a looping back to the initiations that presented once before. The 9 go on to say, but 3 years passed in linear presentation from your perspective. So they're talking about 2020. There's a potential energetic looping back to the challenges and the tests and the opportunities for initiation that we had as humanity, as physically incarnated beings in 2020. That doesn't mean we're redoing 2020 as some people might perceive. It means that there's a potential geometric setting that's coming into potentiality, coming into set point, that is looking likely to manifest. We'll know more as we go forward. And that is a presentation of challenges, tests, opportunities for initiation that we had in 2020. It doesn't mean it's the same. It's a looping back. The 9 go on to say, yet in truth, so they're showing us a linear line looping back. That's what I mean by here we are in 2023, we're looping back to 2020. That doesn't mean that that is what it is, because the 9 say in truth, this is the figure of 8, or this way, toroidal energetic. It's a figure of 8 swirling infinite loop, toroidal energetic, allowing you to move through your own sine wave. So what that means is your own creation of reality is where you are going. You're creating your reality by your beliefs, your opinions, your paradigm, your ability to go with the flow and experience as the observer, the witness, he or she who bears witness, and the ability to stay within the 0 point and allow for a clear manifestation in reality of that which most best serves you and all that you are in a quantum field. But if you are stuck and caught in opinion, subscribe to a specific decision, which is a good thing sometimes, but not so much in other times. So we choose whether we subscribe to a particular presentation, decision, or not. So if we are moving through this within our own sine wave and we subscribe within opinion, judgment, categorization, as in this means this, and that the reason for that is this, and you're wrong because this is right, and you're wrong because I am right, and all that kind of mindset, that's going to take you into a reality where you perceive a looping back in a linear sense. So what I'm saying here is, I believe what the 9 are saying here is that there will be individuals in that structure, in that consciousness, who will say, oh my goodness, this is 2020 all over again. Haven't we had enough? Why are we in 2020 again? This is a repeating loop. This is Groundhog Day. That's kind of where this consciousness is. But they're subscribing to that through their own paradigm and belief system and consciousness. Those who create the sine wave of 0 point are in the toroidal field, which is an infinite loop. There's multiple different playouts and experiences for those individuals that are creating something very different. So the 9 go on to say, allowing you to move through your own sine wave experience and transcend the repeating loop, instead moving into your own creation. So, excuse me, just have some water. That repeating loop that is linearly presented and comes back on itself, when you may think to yourself, oh my goodness, this is 2020 all over again, that it won't be experienced by the individuals who are in this figure of 8 toroidal energetic in their own sine wave, working as bearing witness, the observer, in 0 point, manifesting their own creation. They experience their own reality that won't be this loop of 2020. What they're experiencing in linear time is 2023 or 2024, which is where we're going. I mean, tomorrow is the beginning of September. So we've got September, October, November, December of 2023 into 2024. These individuals are going forward. They're experiencing something different. It isn't a repeat of 2020 for those individuals. They're in 2023 linearly. They're moving into 2024 linearly. They're not going to see this as a repeat of anything. They're not going backwards in a linear sense. They're always in a linear movement in time and a non-linear movement in time simultaneously. This is explained in this book here, the Diamond Codex and the Quartz Key, and it's in the chapter The Ball of Wool. This explains what is meant by walking the linear journey and the non-linear journey simultaneously. Those individuals will experience their own reality. So on a linear level, they're in 2023 and 2024. On a non-linear level, goodness knows where they may be in time. They may be in a space of no time. They may be experiencing the past 1 minute and way in the future the next, and bringing all of that together into one point. So they won't be repeating 2020. They might bear witness to a presentation that is an opportunity for initiation that others may perceive as challenges and tests. They may bear witness to that, but they won't be experiencing it themselves. This is what I feel the 9 are saying. I felt it was important to come on and discuss this, as this is something we are potentially moving into. And because this is not yet in form, I can't say what the potential is, but the fact that it's falling into this form, it's looking as though this will be the potential. Now, the reason why this form presents in such a complex presentation, if you will, is because there are these different consciousnesses within humanity at the moment, all putting their focused and cohesive input into this structure. And it's falling into alignment with source energy and creation. It's an organic structure. Okay, so the 9 go on to say, upon your 3rd dimensional realm, this brings about a most different configuration from the previous version of reality. So overall, this isn't the same presentation. So prior to 2020, there would have been a geometric set point, very much created by, although it's not a creation, it's a overlay, very much the overlay of the source energetic created by the characters in the novel that we call overlords. That was very much in there. So sensitive individuals could feel that. And if you go back to 2020 in my first video, when this reset or beginning of the new world, however you want to see it, began, I would have said, I'm sure I would have said, that this is palpable. The sensitives could feel this coming in. That's not there this time, even though the overlords in the novel are actually doing more to get their frequency into this pre-matter structure. They're doing more, and it isn't coming into the structure. In 2020, the humanity was unsuspecting and unawares, if you will, even though there were a certain amount of awareness within the awakened individuals. Overall, this was an unawares. There would have been people that once this started to occur, they wouldn't have been surprised. They'd been expecting this for a long, long time. But it was a predominantly unaware state. And so there was an advantage, if you will, given to the overlords in the fictional village. These are fictional characters. Given to these fictional characters, there was a certain advantage. That's no longer there because the awareness is on such varying degrees now within humanity that when you look at humanity, every single individual is in a state of awakening in some form. And I've discussed this before. Some individuals are awakening in such a small way that it barely shows a movement. And to those that are awake, those people will seem to be still locked in the 3D system paradigm, and they are, but there's still an awakening of sorts going on. But within a much larger presentation of the population, there is more awakening. Now, it might not necessarily be spiritual awakening. It might not be enough to trigger a crystalline activation within and to move into a multidimensional way of thinking. But it's an awakening to the fact that reality is not what it was, or reality is not what they thought it was. Or they might think, reality's changed and it was once good and now it's not. Now, whilst that's not a truthful presentation, because we know as awakened individuals, this is a coming to the fore of everything that has been, and it's now showing itself. We know that, but these individuals aren't seeing it that way, but there's still a form of awakening. So everyone's consciousness within that level of awakening, wherever it may be, if the consciousness is cohesive, it's going into this structure, and there is no room for this overlay, if you will. I certainly don't see it, yet I know that the fictional characters that we call overlords are trying harder than they did before, but it isn't going into that structure like it was before, and they are trying so hard. That's what I see. So upon your third dimensional realm, this brings about a most different configuration. So that's what they mean from the previous version. It's not the same. So what plays out in this potential or perceived redo, what plays out is something very different. The awareness is in a much higher geometric placement, shall we say. So that's correct. Well, it would be, the 9 said it, but what I mean is it fits with what I see. So I hear from the 9 within the transmission of what they're saying, but I also see my own psychic vision. And it is a much higher geometric placement because it doesn't have the overlay from the fictional characters we call overlords in it. And what that was, if I try to explain it, in a fictional sense, within the fictional novel, it was almost as though the overlords were coming into the village with, let me say, how should I put this? A takeover type of action or intention in the fictional village. That is still there as an intention, but it's not in the field. It's not in the pre-matter template. It's something different because, and the 9 go on to say, there is an exponential increase in both mass and light. So let's have a quick look at that. If I just section off that bit of text. Increase in both mass and light. So in the sense of mass and light, in the sense of a pre-matter template, a 0-point field, a morphogenetic field, antimatter, mass is kind of explained as the length and breadth of the structure in a directional sense, even though there is no direction within that. It is the cohesive and coherent sound and pattern, and we perceive that as having weight and volume, even though it isn't that. And light, well, that is the raising of emotional frequency within humanity and within the higher guidance around humanity, the higher guidance structures, avatars, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals, ascended masters, archangels, whatever name you want to give to that. So there's an increase in this, and they say with an exponential increase. So when you look at that same structure prior to 2020, it absolutely is exponential, because the fictional characters we call overlords that came in with this intention and action for takeover energy created a darkness within that overlay. It was almost like dark smoke, and you know, when a burning fire, when you have a barbecue and you see food that's charred and black, it kind of put that into what is normally and what is an organic structure, and that was held as a heaviness. So it's perceived as like a foreboding, a harbinger or harbinger of doom, if you will, however you want to place that. And we're talking fiction here, as I've said. That was kind of there running through. And because we're in an unaware situation in the 2020 play out, it's like, what is that? whether you're looking linearly within the physical reality at what's going on, or whether you are looking psychically like I was. What is that? What is that? And that's what I'm explaining. The fictional characters, the overlords, this is the coming in with intention and action of takeover energy and all that goes with that. And I don't need to explain what that is. I'm talking energetically here, and that did come into the physical manifestation. The Nine have always said that all the agendas of these fictional characters, the most they can ever hope for is a partial success. And that is what they got within the last 3 years within the novel. It was partial success. It was never what they wanted. They kind of knew that. Some are thinking, yeah, that's what we expected. Others are surprised because there was an underestimation of numbers and of the way things were. But really, they are aware that when they come in with this intention and energy, all they can do is come in from the top and place that heaviness on the different structures throughout the different modalities within the system, such as medical and nutrition and education and finance and wherever that may be. All they can do is place that and hope that filters down, or not really hope, but intend for that to filter down. We, who are navigating through a third dimensional reality, we create our reality within that. So we can move through these systems that have this charred, barbecued, dark energy running through the structure. We can move with light around us. Sorry, I've just hit my microphone. Hope you heard that. We can move with light around us. So we're not touched by that charred energy, regardless of what's occurring in our physical reality. So that was kind of 2020. But now that charred, barbecued, sort of burnt energy that was sitting in the fields, it's not there. It's not there this time. That doesn't mean it's not going to look chaotic, because you've got this consciousness that hold the belief that we are back there, and they're going to be thinking, oh my goodness, here we are again. But we're not. And if all the fictional characters called overlords can hope for is that we create our own reality through our own belief. So when this superimposed presentation comes through, we can create our own template through our beliefs, because we believe we're back there. We believe that everything that is being presented to us is going to happen to us. We believe our future is all mapped out. If we subscribe to what is essentially an illusion, it's not there. It was in 2020. It was in the pre-matter. That's the intention of the fictional characters we call overlords. The intention was there. It's not there now in 2023. So this is the exponential increase in both mass and light. And the Nine go on to say, the surety expressed by the negative factions, so they're talking about the fictional characters that we call overlords in the novel, all complete fiction. The surety expressed by the negative factions is replaced by trepidation, curiosity, and or egoic belief, and with some an insecurity, being aware of the new mass and light. So let's break that down. The surety expressed by the negative factions. So back in the pre-matter template for 2020, there was surety, and it was kind of like a relentless focus with this barbecued, charred energy running through that thought process and placed in the pre-matter. So it was manifesting, coming in with this relentless energy, surety. That's now been replaced 3 years later in this new presentation by trepidation. So trepidation, that's not surety, that's taking it a little bit carefully. Hasn't quite gone how we intended it to go. Yes, we got this, this, and this, but we didn't get what we wanted to. And some knew that that would be the case or thought it would be. Others were surprised, which is why they then say curiosity. So some have curiosity. The reason why they have curiosity is because some of the overlord structure don't hold an emotional frequency like we do, as like the fairies do in the village. The service to others positive polarization, which is a rainbow spectrum of emotion. Some of them have not taken emotion away, but have kind of shut emotional centers down. So curiosity without anything behind it is sort of just I'm cold. I'm a cold, calculating interest. Interesting to see without any emotion involved. That's what I believe the 9 are saying here. So trepidation. How's this going to go? Let's be cautious. Curiosity, like I don't have any emotion. I'm just curious. And egoic belief. So egoic belief is something like we are God, we can do anything, and we will do what we want to do. So there's different emotional thoughts and consciousness within the fictional characters we call overlords. So that's not a cohesive structure in and of itself, because there are different presentations of emotion. And and with some, an insecurity being aware of the new mass and light. So there's an insecurity as in, I can see this mass and light. I can see this great awakening, if you will, within the villagers, within the novel. I can see what's going on and I'm aware of it. Therefore, I'm not so secure about how things are going to go. So there's a different presentation, despite this trying so hard, because there's all these other emotions. It's not in the field. It's not cohesive enough, or it doesn't hold enough mass. It certainly doesn't hold enough light, and it doesn't hold enough darkness either to create the overlay. It's not there. So I can tell you what these fictional characters are thinking within their consciousness, but it's not in the field. Okay, so they went on to say, yet still they attempt to repeat the cycle. So they are, as I say, trying so hard. They want to repeat this cycle, creating the energetic frequency of cosmic rebirthing point. So their attempt to repeat this cycle, to go back to this loop, back to 2020, creates an energetic frequency that's this pre-matter template of cosmic rebirthing, which they would perhaps call a resetting or a jumping of timelines, or a coming back to their timeline, moving back to the iron core structure rather than the diamond core structure, into an Armageddon system rather than a paradise system in the novel, all fiction. At the point of the time of the blue full supermoon. So within these 2 days, the 30th of August and the 31st of August, there was an attempt at, not creation, it's not creation, an attempt at an overlay structure coming in from the overlords to move into this pre-matter template, but it hasn't worked. It didn't work. Today is the 31st. It's not there. I'm looking at the structure and it's not there. So it hasn't worked. They've not got that overlay into the pre-matter template. That doesn't mean it's not going to be chaotic, because, as I said, there are those who think it's real. Okay, so they went on to say systems are in place for Armageddon override. So that's what the overlords in the novel wish to create in the village, is an Armageddon type scenario amongst the fairies, pixies, elves, gnomes, sprites, and goblins and leprechauns and all the wonderful elementals, including dragons and unicorns. So we're discussing here now a fictional novel. Systems are in place for Armageddon override. So within the village, there are systems in place for an override of that. Now, where are those systems coming from? Well, the 9 say Christ Michael, beloved Sophia consciousness structures. So those structures, Christ Michael, beloved Sophia, they're not just higher dimensional energies, ascended masters, as in, oh, we're nothing down here, we're just humans. They're doing it. The Pleiadians are doing it. The Syrians are doing it. The extraterrestrials are doing it. They're doing it for us. We're sitting here and like, yay, the light is here. That's not how it is. That's only half the picture. Christ Michael and beloved Sophia consciousness structures are the higher dimensional presentations coming from the awaken aware humanity. Some are coming from asleep humanity, those with a good heart, those that are good people and loving people. They create the group soul energies. Christ Michael is the higher template, if you will, of what we would call Archangel Michael. It's the Christed aspect. So you're going up in layers. So we as humanity create a group soul, and then the group souls create another group soul, and then those group souls create another one, all the way up to source. So that's a whole other subject, and I hope I've given you a picture of that. If you look at my previous material and information coming from the 9, they've talked about this loads, and in the books, especially in this one, it talks about the creation of these group souls and what that means. So Christ Michael, beloved Sophia consciousness, the reason why this comes into the transmission, and this is what is so important, this was a transmission that came through yesterday. I brought it through yesterday and uploaded that yesterday on the 30th, the day of the blue supermoon. The reason why that is put through, Christ Michael, beloved Sophia consciousness, why don't the 9 just say higher consciousness, higher thought structures of humanity? Because Christ Michael is a frequency code. Beloved Sophia consciousness structure is a frequency code. It's a memory activation. It's a DNA activation. Christ Michael speaks directly to your DNA. Therefore, it is creating the override of the Armageddon structure by bringing the words through, and for humanity, whoever listens to that particular transmission, that section of humanity, to have that. So when they listen to those words and they take those within, then they move into that override themselves. So no, it's not being done by someone outside of you, some being that you don't even know, some planet that you've never heard of. It's you. It's you that's doing this. I've said this again and again. The 9 have said this again and again, and it has been their main teaching since day 1. Okay, so systems are in place for Armageddon override in the village, in the fictional village, and Christ Michael, beloved Sophia consciousness structures alongside the opposing structure across the interdimensional chessboard. So we're looking at a gameplay, 2 different factions, positive and negative, that of the men in black. So we're talking about the overlord structure in the village with the reset button, if you will. So yes, they do have a reset button, as in they have the technology to be able to reset the timeline, or they did have for a long, long, long time. Why is it not in the structure? It's not there. So this reset button, it doesn't matter how many times they press that button, reset, reset, reset. That's why they're trying so hard. It's not there. It's not in the pre-meta template. It's not what is falling into place at the time of the blue moon. This is an organic structure. The overlay hasn't got a place. I can't see it, and the 9 are showing me through their transmission that we are the ones that have cleared that, if you will. It's not really a clearing. People call this a clearing or a cleansing, and yes, they are appropriate words to use, and the 9 have used those words themselves because it gives us the correct picture, but it isn't really a clearing. It's our consciousness creating a matching template that doesn't have, if you will, room for the overlord pressing the reset button, creating all this charred, burnt material that you have on barbecues. They can't get it in there. So it isn't that we've cleared it out. We have, if you look at it linearly from 2020 to now, yes, there's been a massive clearing, you could say. The starseeds have cleared the galactic grids or the etheric grids. You could say all that, it's all true. But I'm trying to show you the most accurate presentation that I have the ability to do in my own understanding. There may well be far more accurate ways of explaining this, but I can only do the best that I can do. So I wouldn't say this is clearing. This is actually creating enough mass and light so they can't get that presentation, the Armageddon presentation in the village. They can't get it into the structure. It's not there. I don't know how many times I should say it's not there. And when I look at how it was prior to 2020 and look at it now, exponential change. And the Awaken Aware humanity did this by doing whatever you could to pass on your knowledge, by sharing, by giving out information, whether that's in the street, in the shop, or on a platform, however you did it. Every single person who helped to awaken others, you're all the ones that have created this now, which is a pre-matter template that they don't have their intention in. That doesn't mean they're not going to try. They are trying desperately, which is why the 9 have said they attempt to repeat the cycle, yet still they attempt to repeat the cycle. But nothing is happening from their mind focus, their intention. They then went on to say, "No, not this game player, and you cannot see in the dark. See in the dark too well to know, and you yourself are seen. Know without searching for more sight, and you will know everything." So let's have a look at this one, because this is deeply metaphoric. "No, not this game player, and you cannot see in the dark." So I feel what the 9 is saying here is, if you do not know these, I'm just checking that we're still recording. I don't know why I do that, because it's never ever cut off so far, thankfully. If you do not know these fictional characters, these overlords, if you don't know them, and I'm not talking about knowing who they are, knowing their names, knowing what they look like, I'm talking about knowing the structure, understanding the structure. If you don't know them, you can't see in the dark. And I think what the 9 is saying here is the darkness engulfs you and you can't see within that. You have no sight to be able to go forward. You are blinded in that sense energetically, because you don't know the game player. If you don't know the game player, you can't know the game, or at least surmise what the game potentially could be. If you don't know the game player, you can't see what's happening. These are the individuals that will, when this occurs, if this occurs, as I said, it hasn't set. It's looking like it is setting, but it hasn't yet. We'll know more in a short while. These individuals that will say, "Oh my goodness, not again. It's happening again." They don't know the game player. They don't know there even is a game player. They don't know that there's an interdimensional chess game going on. They don't know who the opponents are. And even if you tried to tell them, some of them wouldn't believe it. They're like, what nonsense, because they're in their own reality. They're in their own reality creation. That's what they've chosen to create for themselves. So they can't see in the dark. Then the 9 say, see in the dark too well to know, and you yourself are seen. Yeah, so what the 9 mean is, if you look too far, as in you come closely to that structure, I don't know how to explain this. Let me try. Like when I look at that structure, I'm shrouded in my own invisible cloak. I'm able to look and view and empathize, not necessarily empathize, but yes, empathize without necessarily moving into the same feeling, as in, so that I can tell you what I see. But I'm somewhat set back. I'm viewing, but I'm somewhat set back. If I were to go in too closely and know that too well, however that might manifest, it could be to do with research, it could be to do with constant psychic work astrally without protection, or without a shield, if you will. However that manifests, you go in too far, you yourself are seen. Now, that does happen sometimes, and I have seen that on very rare occasions where I know I have gone in too far, and I know I've been seen, and then I move back. You can take yourself elsewhere. And if you feel that you're viewing this structure, because if you know not the game player, you can't see in the dark. So you need to view the structure. If you feel you're viewing the structure in the novel and you're being seen, there are many things you could do. There is the purple cloak of invisibility. You just place this purple cloak over you, and then that is your membrane, that is your event horizon, and you choose for that to be your invisibility, and take action with this creation within your hyperspace reality. There's all sorts of things you can do to take action. You can use crystals, you can use artwork, you can use actual physical action of going out and doing something. You can take the pilgrimage. But there's another good one, and I actually, believe it or not, got this from Enid Blyton years ago when I was about 7-8 years old. One of her stories was about a moving island. And it was a pixie. There was a pixie in this particular novel, this children's novel that I read when I was 7, 8, maybe 9. My favorite author at the time when I was a child. There was a pixie that wanted to hide. I can't remember the pixie's name, but he liked to get away from people. And he managed to get this island, and it was called the Wandering Island, I think. If you've read Enid Blyton, you probably know the story I'm talking about. This pixie would just wander around, and when anyone tried to find him, the island would disappear. So they're on their wishing chair or up the faraway tree, whichever story it was. I'm pretty sure it was the wishing chair. And they couldn't find this pixie, because they did find ways to find him, but that's not the point. The point is, you can simply do that. You can simply imagine that you are on an island and it's in a 0-point field, hyperspace field, your own personal domain. And if you feel that you've been seen, then move. You can move light years away through interdimensional hyperspace and go somewhere completely different, and then they're gone. Like in Star Trek, when the Klingons are like, or whichever race it is that are chasing the Enterprise, and then they'll go into warp speed, super drive, and then they're in another dimension, whoosh, and the one that's chasing them is gone. You can use these, but the intentions and imaginations and visuals you need to hold must be cohesive and coherent, and also grounded by action. And there are multiple ways to do this, and this is explained somewhat in here, although I don't think the 9 have gone into this in absolute depth. So hopefully that will help. But there is certainly information on my YouTube channel about the purple cloak of invisibility. So if you go onto my website, look at the search bar and type in invisibility, you should find that video where that transmission presents an activation for that. And that's similar to the Harry Potter films, but actually the 9 taught me this exercise before I ever saw Harry Potter. And when I saw Harry Potter, I remember saying to Cat's Magic, that's my cloak. You know, so yeah, but we're all accessing the same truths, the same visuals. These are flame letters. We've come in with them. We've been incarnated with them. That's a whole other subject. So the next line is, know without searching for more sight and you will know everything. So you don't have to go looking. It's like, right, I want to see this structure. I want to know what they're doing. I want to know their plans. I need to know exactly what they're going to do. And you look and you're searching, and this can be internet research, reading books, talking to people. It can be work within your mind, whatever it is. If you're searching, you're kind of in resistance to not knowing. And you need to be in a place where there is no resistance, because if you find knowing without searching for more sight, just relax into it and stand there in the 0 point and look. Just calmly look with love, not necessarily love for the overlords per se, but love in and of itself for all and everything, for you, because you are all and everything. Then all will be seen, and then you will know everything. And that again is a flame letter phrase, and that's why it's in the transmission. You will know everything. They're not meaning this literally, as in you're going to know everything. They're meaning the energetic of all that is you is able to be in an omnipresent bubble and know that which you desire to know through the heart and integration within consciousness. It isn't a mind intellect, it's a heart intellect, or that's the wrong word, it's a heart frequency, it's a heart consciousness. So I wanted to come on, I wanted to just go through that small piece because I think it's relevant for where we're going as of kind of now, really. I mean, today is the last day of August. August was a bit of a sort of reprieve of this in certain ways for some people. But September is where we are potentially moving into this, that's in a state of potentiality coming into form. We can change that form, and we don't need to change that form though, because that form is really good, because it doesn't contain the fictional characters we call overlords, doesn't contain their intentions, it doesn't contain what they have, no matter how hard they try. It's not there. I keep saying it's not there, and it's not. So all the starseeds have to do is continue with that work, that spiritual work, working with your crystals, working with knowing, with love, with higher dimensional energy, your connection, your joy. You are in New Earth now. Nothing can touch you. You are in New Earth now. It's here. You've found it. And take that perspective where we have already birthed that new reality. And that's what's bringing that pre-matter template down. So at the moment, that structure looks really good. Doesn't mean it won't be chaotic, because there are those that can't see that structure. They can't see the overlay. They don't know the game player. So when things occur, they will think they are back in what has happened previously. They will think that they've found the Armageddon template in the village. And when they react accordingly and hold the consciousness that's their reaction to what they believe they're seeing, they then create it. So yeah, that's why I wanted to come on today and discuss that little piece of quite important transmission that the 9 brought forward yesterday. And if you want to go and listen to that transmission and have the activation directly from the 9, then I uploaded that video yesterday. It's on YouTube, Rumble, BitChute and Odyssey, and it's called Cosmic Rebirth, Blue Full Supermoon, August 30th and 31st, 2023. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you again soon.